Good day, dear students. Welcome to our program. Our module is on Counseling and Learner Support 2. This is the module for BESP and B.Ed honors, and it is a subject content based. My name is Aina Simpson. My contact number is 081 2457 456, as well as my email address ainasimpson is one word @gmail.com. Module's aims are: this module is meant to synthesize the teacher trainees to the psychological needs of learners. That is the bottom line of why we have the book. It helps us to train teachers so that we look at the needs of the learners, and also to develop their guidance and counseling know-how and the skills. So you are being trained to guide and how you can counsel a learner. Counseling theories explain how features of modern life influence psychological well-being. How is the well-being of a learner has been influenced, and by what? The implementation of approaches in individual and group counseling. How can one implement or come up with an individual counseling, or how can one come up with a group counseling, because it can also be done in a group. The core functions of the counseling process. What is it that you need to do when you are carrying out the counseling process, and their relevant implementing skills and techniques. The principles and levels of crisis intervention. We are looking at the principles, and we are looking at the crisis, which are the experiences or temporary feelings of physical discomfort in a person, and also the counseling interventions for underachievers and for social issues. We have learners who are underachievers, who do not achieve what it's meant for them to achieve. The features of career guidance, career counseling. What are the characteristics of a career counseling? And then we have the upper primary and secondary learner support. All these are included in our module, in our unit. So meaning that if by the end of the unit of the study guide, if you have read it all, then you have covered all what I just said now. The module assessment quality assurance. The module is assessed in this way. To obtain the semester mark, the student must submit one assignment of 120 marks for module of 10 credits. And then you need a 50% 50% is required for examination admission. In order for you to be admitted for examination, you need to have 50%, and the examination duration is 2 hours 30 minutes for 120 marks. And then the final pass will be 50, which is part of the assignment and then part of the examination together. And then you have your final mark, which is 60%, which is a half of 120. Let us look at Unit 1, Theories and Tools in Psychology. Counseling theory. In our counseling, we are talking of theories. We are talking of people who have come up with ideas that would assist us to deal with counseling. And we have psychoanalytic, cognitive, humanistic, existential, and behavioral approaches. Those ones are the theories that we need to look at. When we look at psychoanalytic, we are looking at mystery nature of a humankind. So how does the person's mind works? And then it is broadened up to tripartite, where we have the id, the ego, and the superego. How does the conscious of the person works? So we need to read more on that. And then we have the general characteristics of validity, features and limitations of theories. It does not mean that when they are given to us, they are alpha and omega. We look at the theory and we look at the practical part when we start using them in our classes. Does it work as it's said in the book, or do you see it otherwise? This is why we have the limitation, or that's why the limitations are talked about. Biopsychosocial theory, which perceives people as holistic being. We are looking at this theory as we are looking at a whole person. When you are looking at a person's development and you need to assist the person, you don't decide which part of the person you will be assisting. You look at a holistic being, a whole person. Signs of pathology that may assist the counselor when assessing the client, in this case the learner, and also in making an informed referral to other professionals. When we have our learners, we need to look at to find different signs which can assist us for you to determine that, okay, learner A and learner B need to be counseled. So as we are doing so, we need to be fair in finding out this. Otherwise, we will be misled to think that the learner needs counseling, whereas the learner is not. First of all, we need to understand these signs of pathology. What are those symptoms that they show? Do they always become angry? And it's not always that the child who is always angry needs counseling. We have also those ones who are withdrawn. You know that the child was active, and at some point the child just started moving back, is no longer taking part, is no longer participating in anything. So those are some of the areas. And then Unit 2, features of modern life and how they influence psychological well-being. What are this modern life? We are looking at the characteristics of Bronfenbrenner's ecosystem counseling model. Bronfenbrenner find out that a child cannot develop in isolation. Therefore, there are people around the child. Of course, we start with the child, but then he divides this into four categories, where we have the micro, meso, macro, and it helps us to learn how the child develops when the child is closer to these people. The closest family of this child in the micro, that is now the family members, the peers, the friends, the school, so it goes. And after that, then you have another area again where the child is also attached to, but the closest one is the micro one. And then we have the aims of primary, secondary, and tertiary interventions. First of all, we need to understand what is intervention. What is this interference? What are you going to do in order to stop something that you think someone needs to be assisted? So we have three areas, which are primary, secondary, and tertiary. You can give reasons for the three interventions. Try to relate it to any issue you think could be resolved by using these interventions. So the first one, primary, you are very close to a person. And then the second, you can refer the person to, or the learner to, someone else whom you think will assist the child. But then the third one, we are looking at, which is tertiary, we are looking at the professional. We are looking at somebody who has been specialized in that area, not just any other. So in terms of hospitals, for example, you start with a child, that is primary care or primary intervention, and then you refer the child to a hospital, and then the hospital might as well think that, or realize that the child need further assistance. That will be now to the specialist. Then we are looking at Unit 3, Individual and group counseling approaches. Different practitioners in the field of psychology. We have the clinical and counseling, educational, industrial, and registered counselors. There is need to understand the different type of duties each person do regarding counseling. And then we look at the features and phases of the psychoanalytic approach, counseling techniques of the psychodynamic approach or strategies. How do one go about that? We are not looking at approaches in isolation. We have the learner who is at the center of the assistance, which is the counseling. And then you look at which way can I make use of, which approach can I make use of in order to assist this learner. Features of group counseling and the various approaches which could be used. When we are looking at the group counseling, there are also some approaches that can be used. You can have a group counseling after you have studied the situation, you know what the problem is, and you find out ways how best you can assist the group which you are busy counseling. Features and various approaches in individual counseling in schools. So we have the various approaches in individual counseling. Not only in group counseling, also in individual counseling, one needs to have different approaches. Then we are looking at Unit 4, core functions of the counseling process and their relevant implementing skills or techniques. 3 core functions of the counseling process. What are they? You are looking at the relationship building. You need to build a relationship with the person you are counseling, in this case the learner. You need to assess the problem. You need to know what the problem is. And the third one, you need to find a way or ways how to address the problem. Those are the core functions of the counseling process. Different counseling techniques could be the role play, could be the journals, could be many others that are given to us in our module or study guide. Once you go in this unit, you should be able to see them right at the beginning of the unit. Then you look at different counseling techniques. What can you use in order to counsel a learner, being in a group or being individual? We have 2 theorists, Curry and Bond, who came up with the interactive skills model in order to assist in counseling and also how to guide learners through that. Culture from a counseling perspective, define it, propose how it could be accommodated into counseling. So in counseling, we can also look at the part of culture where we need to define it. We should understand what culture is and how culture can be used in order to counsel a learner, or how can it be accommodated in. And then Unit 5, crisis intervention, principles, levels, and ethics. Meaning of crisis, we have to define what crisis is and what are the symptoms experienced during this crisis. When we are talking of crisis, we are talking of experiences, temporary feelings of psychological discomfort in a person. And what are they? Thereafter, you have symptoms that a person will be showing. Possibly the person will show feelings of anxiety and many others that will guide you now to know that this person has been in this situation or is facing this situation. Stages of crisis, and then we have the categories of types of crisis. The crisis also, this experience of temporary feelings can be in different stages, as well as also it can be classified in different categories. And principles underlying crisis interventions and the levels of crisis interventions. After that, we look at the ethical principles in counseling. What are the ethical principles? With the ethical principles, we are looking at the moral principles, good and bad. That is what we are looking at, and such principles need to be interpreted in detail in order to understand them fully. So as a counselor, you are guided by this. You cannot just do what you want to do. Let's have an example of a learner open up to you on a problem he or she is going through. It's not your part to go and tell the next person that child B or learner C came to tell me about this and this and this. That is part of the ethical principles that we need to know, or we need to have. Unit 6, Counseling Intervention for Underachievement and Social Issues. Define underachievement, and then we have the types of underachievement. When we look at underachievement, it has both psychological as well as social issues around it. And then with the underachievement, it is basically looking at the lower in performance of a learner in school, which could be caused by different factors around the child or in the environment where the child finds himself in. And then we are looking at it this way, that it's not just something that starts on that day. It is a long-term issue. For any other person to notice that someone has become part of this, or is now an underachiever, this has started somewhere, because there are other issues around it which started first before we finally see the end product of it, which is underachiever. And then we are looking at these people, the learners who are underachiever. They have different characteristics, or they have some sorts of characteristics which are giving signs for any other person to identify them easily. Factors that commonly influenced underachievement. So these are the factors that we can look at, which forms, or at the end of the day, they gave part of, or they became part of the underachiever. Because underachiever is just the end product of what has been happening around the person, and it's taking time for any other person to pick it, unfortunately. Counseling interventions for junior secondary underachievers. There are some areas that the junior secondary underachievers need to be guided into, because it is not only at a certain area or a certain phase that underachievers are being identified or occurred. They are in different phases. Interventions for rape victims, teenager pregnancy, possible suicide cases, alcohol and drug abuse, domestic violence, and HIV and AIDS. There are also some other interventions. How best can we assist these people who find themselves into the factors that I just mentioned now, areas that I just mentioned now? Because does not mean that it's only in school setups that we need to do that. The same learners we are dealing with, they also come from different areas, and they have all sorts of issues around them. They could be rape victims, or they could be a teenager who fell pregnant, or they could be thinking of committing suicide, and so on. So they also need to be, somebody need to intervene in order to assist them. And then we are looking at career counseling. Career counseling has to do with guiding learners in order to find ways in life. What is it that they want to study, and where are the world changing now? What do they need to look at in order to get into a career, and so on. So the changing of world of work, it has to do with what does the world has to offer. You do not just study something that you can only work in your own country or in your own space. You can also look at what does the world has to offer. Should I study this area? Am I able to get the job in another country or in another continent? Most employability skills and values that are required in jobs. For anybody to be employed, you need to have certain skills, and those skills are required in the values. So you need to know that, for example, you can't come to work or arrive at work the time you wish to. You need to adhere to the rules that are set for the work and all that. The important meanings of work: social, economy, political, ethical, and moral. So these are the meaning of work. Why are you at work? When you look at social, are you able to communicate to other colleagues that you are working with, and so on? And then we look at other areas too. And two key messages on the importance of school to learners under your care. What is the message that you have to tell the learners that are under your care about the importance of school? Why do you think they need to be in school all the time until they complete their high school or they complete school, in order for them to get into institutions of higher learning? So when we look at the career counseling, we are looking at the future life of these learners, and they need to be guided from the word go so that they understand what they need to take up in life. Unit 8, features of senior primary and secondary learner support. Quality teaching is based upon understanding of the learning process. We are looking at features of learning process, how and when it could be applied, common possible barriers that has the effect to learning and how to address them. Parents and guardians are needed in the life of their children. So when we look at the learner support, a learner is supported from all angles of life. And by supporting this learner, there are also some areas that are hindering or that stop the progress of supporting them. But then parents are also invited to come in so that they assist their children with their education. Think carefully how to advise parents in which manner they could support children's learning at home. It does not mean that when a child learns at school, then it ends there. The child also needs to be assisted when the child is home. That is if parents are able to. Because we do have parents who are also not able to assist their children, even if it is required or even if it is part of their duties to do. Features of emotional support by the teacher. As a teacher, you need to support your learners, and it's your duty to identify them, look at the different symptoms, talk to the learners, find out more of their well-being. That is the only way you can come to a better conclusion of what and how best can you assist the child. Feedback to learners about their learning. As a teacher, you are required to give feedback to your learners. For example, if they wrote a test or any form of assessment, you mark their work, you discuss with them, and you invite all the complaints they might have or any other clarity that they want to hear from you, not only to keep their work, because they also need to know how their performances are. Then we look at features of democratic classroom discipline that would support learning rather than punishing learners. We are looking at a classroom which is in a democratic way or manner, where a learner is or learners are allowed to air their views, not that the teacher is the only one who has something to say all the time. Inductive and indirect teaching, learning, and homework. We can also look at the performance of the learners and support them when they do their homework, and also sometimes we can assist them by doing indirect teaching, learning. Let's say you have a discussion on a certain topic and some ideas comes up. Any learner is entitled to his own ideas, but then when you realize that the learner is going out of hand, then it's your duty to inform and remind the learner that no, on this one we rather say it this way or we put it this way. That is the part of learner support in all areas from the teacher. Examination format and contents. The duration will be 2 hours 30 minutes. Please pay attention to the following. That is your student number that must be written correctly. Read instructions carefully before you start writing. Please read questions carefully and only answer the questions asked and complete them. When possible, give examples. The comments from April examinations. Most students misinterpreted some questions, therefore some answers were incomplete, and as such, results were very low. Because if you do not answer if you provide an answer which does not answer the question asked, then you cannot get the marks that are required by the question or allocated by the question. Also, look at the marks allocated per question before you attempt it. Some students provided vague or short answers or answers that did not suit the allocated marks. It's very important that we also provide neat work. Pay attention to the exit learning outcomes in the study guide. So when you go to the exit learning outcomes, it gives you an idea of what is included in this unit. That is very important, so that by the end of the unit, after you have read the unit, then you know I have covered what the unit has provided. Make sure you work out all the learning outcomes of every unit in your study guide. This is going to help you to prepare your examination, because questions will not be set out of the study guide but rather from the study guide. But we have different ways of asking questions, and some questions are already in the study guide which can help you to figure out how best this question can be asked or this part can be asked. Use them as part of your study notes and prepare for the examination. It will give you a clear understanding of the work. And then questions covers more than one part of the study guide, and one question can cover 2 to 3 different aspects. So this means you can have a question which will be question 2.1 and 2.2 and 2.3. That is basically what it means. And all units in your study guides will be covered. And for other information is that you need to read with understanding. Do not memorize the work. Understand the work, because some questions could be more of practical. And if you memorize the work with a practical question, you may not give the correct answer as required. Feel free to contact the tutor should you experience any problems regarding the subject content as well as the examination preparation. Wish you all the best and good luck with your studies.